Order, order. I would like to start this session on the International Development Committee's inquiry into zero hunger, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 2, and one that we're quite a way off meeting and tends not to get that much attention. We're really fortunate that we're joined by two smallholder farmers, one in Kenya and one in Malawi. Violet, I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you got into farming and about the situation that you farm in right now, please?
Yes, I'm Violet Natembeya from Western Kenya, Bungoma. I'm married. I have 4 children. I stay with 3 orphans. I have 4 acres.
And
in the farm, I have so many IGS, e.g. bananas, dairy cow, vegetable, poultry, cassava, potato, maize, avocado, hash, and pawpaw.
Violet, that's a really diverse range of crops. I think when you started, you only had maize, and that wasn't enough to even properly feed your family.
In the beginning, I was just struggling before I get food for my family. And until I got NGO ripple effect from 2017. They trained me and I implement in my farm. I have a vision, a farm plan, a resource map. And my vision is 2030. My vision was to have a child who have graduated, to have a house self-contained, to have a vehicle, to have a supermarket.
Violet, I love a woman with a vision. Do you think that you'll make it happen?
So from there, my life started changing. I got an inhaler from ripple effect, and I have used that dairy cow to get a compost. So I took that compost and used planting maize. That is zero from when I have noticed joined ripple. I was getting 7 bags. But right now, as I started using composting, I'm getting that and above.
Wow.
So I took 12 bags for my using food for my family, and the others selling for school fees.
That's incredible.
And I normally use foods from my land. When I take tea, I take milk tea, and I use yams from my land, or I use cassava from my land, or potato. I can't go to shop and buy.
And Violet, the change in the yield that you've got, that's just down to compost?
I have a compost, so I normally use that compost for planting. If I use a compost, I normally have most or more bags.
That's amazing. Let me bring Massiye in now. Massiye, I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about your farm? So I know that you started out in healthcare and now you've ended up in poultry. That's an interesting journey. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting. I'm just envying my friend Violet. I think she has diversified a lot. But thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Massiye Nyang'wa. I am 49 years old. I'm married. I have 3 children. I have my own extended family. So I think in total, I stay with about 15 people. But that's story for another day. So my background is I'm a nurse, I'm a registered nurse. I was working as a nurse, and I realized that in Malawi we have a lot of malnourished children. Not only children, even pregnant mothers. It starts from pregnancy up to childbearing, up to the under 5s. So I said, what can I do to improve this? What can I do to contribute to improve the malnutrition in my society? So I retired in 2018. I decided to do poultry farming. I started with broiler chickens, those that give us meat, because they were short term. By 6 weeks, you're selling them. So I was also looking at the profit margin of it. Then, but my main goal was to do chickens, layer chickens, the ones that give us eggs. Because I wanted, my slogan is an egg a day for a pregnant mom and for an under 5. So I realized that the broiler chicken we're selling, of course, but not much because there's a lot of competition in Malawi. Until I started doing the layer chickens. When they started laying eggs, I started selling my chickens. Mainly to my community around me, we have, I stay in Lilongwe in area 12, which is within the city. But next to me is
Oh no, I think the line has gone down. Violet, could I come back to you?
Yeah.
I think your farm was a family farm. Have you found that the weather, climate has changed over your lifetime that's affected your farm?
Yeah. In my farm, I normally do practices. E.g., terracing, mulching, intercropping, crop rotation, and the tree agroforestry. So it has helped me so much.
Thank you. Can I hand over to Gordon?
Thank you very much for joining. It's good to see you got back okay, Massiye. My name is Gordon. I'm an MP in Scotland, but obviously part of the UK. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the challenges that you have as a smallholder farmer in your country. You're obviously both in different countries, so maybe Violet, if you start first, tell us maybe some of the challenges that you face in Kenya.
Challenges which I'm facing or we normally face is marketing. We can plant properties in our farm, but getting market or selling where we sell is a challenge.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we have vegetables, banana, cassava, but the market is a challenge.
And Massiye, in Malawi, which Scotland and Malawi have a long-standing partnership, so I'm particularly interested in the challenges that you face as a smallholder farmer.
Another challenge is rain.
Oh, the rain.
Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Massiye, can you hear us okay? Oh, I think you're on mute, Massiye.
You can hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Okay, so in Malawi, the challenges that we are facing, of course, marketing is the biggest challenge. We have small-scale farmers and large-scale farmers. So for the small-scale farmers, you start, once they know that there is a farmer that side doing this business, the large-scale farmers will come and destroy the market.
We'll be back.
So, for example, I'll give you an example. As I said, I started with the broiler chickens. In my area, I was selling because the people love the chickens that are producing locally than the chickens that are producing big farms. But once they know that, oh, this person is selling this area, they bring vehicles full of chickens and they sell them very, very, very low price where you cannot even compete. If you try to compete with them, it means you're just giving your chickens for free, you're not making any profit.
Massiye, I'm sorry, we've just got a vote now, so we're going to have to suspend the session. I'll leave you with Leo, and hopefully we'll be back in 10 minutes. So
Okay.
I'll let Leo talk to you about what's going to happen now, but order, let's suspend the session. We're about to start the session again, and I'm going to ask Gordon to continue with his question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for that. Massiye, just to go back to what you were saying, talking specifically about the challenges that you face as a smallholder farmer in Malawi.
So, for the smallholder farmers, what happens is that we buy our stuff from the big farmers, starting from the chicks, the feed, and the vaccines and everything. So you buy, hoping that you're going to make profits out of it, make your calculations. And at the end of the day, you find that the big farmer is also selling the very same products within your area on a very cheap price, which makes the small-scale farmer not to make profits. I think with the CASA, we had an interface with the big farmers, the small-scale farmers than the big farmers, but it didn't materialize. So yeah, we're still struggling. Because there's that competition between the small-scale farmer and the big farmers. So you find that usually most of the small farmers, either they stopped doing the poultry farming, or they slowed down. For example, myself, I started with 500 chickens, layers eggs. I expanded up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 chickens. But the moment they came into my area with their eggs, it became a challenge for me to sell, because I could produce 500, 600 trays of eggs per day, which I was able to sell before they came into my area. But when they came around here, not easy to sell. So yeah, those are the biggest challenges that the small-scale farmers in Malawi are facing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so.
Thank you. David?
Yes.
Taylor.
I'm David Taylor. There's multiple Davids on this panel. I'm David Taylor. I'm the MP for Hemel Hempstead, and prior to joining as a Member of Parliament, I worked for the Fair Trade Foundation, which works with a lot of smallholder farmers in Africa. And I wanted to start by asking you, you talked about the challenges of getting your produce to market. Do you both sell internationally, or is it just within Kenya and Malawi?
It's within. For example, in Malawi, we have had opportunities to sell in Mozambique, a neighboring country, but the prices are now on the border, the exchange. It hasn't been easy because you need to package, transport, and on border there are also some challenges that you face with the exchange rates and the tax, the revenues. So you find that most of the Malawians are now saying, no, it's not even worth it to sell in Mozambique, because actually it's more costly than selling within the country. So very big farmers, they can afford to sell internationally than the small-scale farmers. Even if we gang up together to say, okay, let's put our eggs together, let's do this together, it still did not work.
And Violet, did you want to come in? I wanted to ask, because you're part of a farmer cooperative, is that right, Violet? I wondered if you could talk to us about that a bit and the benefits that being part of a cooperative brings.
We have Kimaiti Cooperative, Farmers Cooperative.
How does that work, and how does that benefit
where we
you?
sell our milk.
And sorry, could you tell us more about the cooperative? Is it good, the cooperative?
In cooperative, we receive a dairy cow from Repo, So when we milk, we get milk, so we sell it to cooperative. So it is good.
Thank you. Can I bring David Mundena in, please?
Yes. Can I just ask you both, perhaps starting with you, Violet, what help or support have you had from outside, from other people or other bodies that has most helped you?
One support which I have received from people, one is a dairy cow. When that dairy cow which I received from Ripo, it has helped me a lot. Secondly, I have received trainings. These trainings have helped me a lot because, one, they helped me to have a farm plan. They have helped me to have resources in my farm. Thirdly, they have helped me to have a vision. Without a vision, you cannot move so far. So they have helped me a lot.
Good. And for you, and that's good to hear. Massiye, what help and support have you had that's been most beneficial?
For me, we did training on leadership. I'm in the board for small-scale farmers. So we did the training in leadership, we developed our strategic plan. We also did a training on assertiveness, where we were connected with the government, we were connected with the other players that look into farming to bring in our issues onto table, to discuss our issues as small-scale farmers regarding the challenges that we are facing, especially this challenge I'm talking about, our big farmers selling everywhere. So yeah, we had that interface. That was the support that we got. We had that interface. We talked about it. We discussed. We agreed that these things will stop, but we are saying that they are not stopping. So we are also planning. Since we already got the training, we are planning to say, okay, let's meet again. Let's interface them. Let's show them what is happening. Let the government also know that even though they had put this in place as a law, they shouldn't be selling like this, but it's still happening. Then what will be the plan B? What next? So that is the greatest support that we have received, because if I see that there's a vehicle in my area is selling, I report. Even though there's no action taken, but I know that I've reported that there's this happening within my area, and this is not what we agreed. So we are putting that on paper to document, to say, okay, we reported this, it never happened. We reported this, it never happened. Then what next? So that was the greatest support that we received, because we are looking at permanent solutions to our problems as small-scale farmers. Our goal is to see them selling in big shops. They should slaughter their chickens, put them in big shops and market them there, sell them there. While here within our local areas, we should also be able to sell. That was the agreement. So yeah, that was the greatest support that we have received.
And what else do you think would make a difference to you? If there was anything, is there anything else you think, well, if that was done, it would make a big difference?
I would think that probably the use of media, because we haven't used much, a lot of media. We haven't gotten that support. We need at least to advertise, let people know what is right and what is not right. So that even the community, when they see that things are not happening the way they are supposed to happen, they should also be able to report. Shouldn't only be few people complaining, but it has to be everyone's responsibility. If they see big farmers in their area, their big trucks selling their chickens, and we are saying that even if you bring these chickens, they are live chickens. We don't know if they are well immunized or not. We don't know what diseases they are carrying. They may bring their diseases from their houses into our area, which is also very bad for all the chickens, not only for my chickens, but even for the local chickens. So I think what we need now is to sensitize the communities. We need to use the media, if possible, so that people know what are the responsibilities of these big farmers and the small farmers.
And Violet, is there anything that you think else could be done to help you that would make a difference to you?
The other thing, they have helped me or us to have knowledge. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. I know how busy farmers always are, and you've taken a lot of time out. I really appreciate it. But one last question. Massiye, your aim was, as a health worker, to get pregnant mothers and under fives an egg. So are you meeting that aim, and are you seeing that it does really make a health difference?
It's making a difference. Like I said, that since there were no eggs around my area, when I started doing the eggs, people realized that, oh, there is market around this place. So they're also bringing their eggs, and it's cheaper than what I sell. So I believe even if they're not buying from me, but they're still buying the eggs, they're still eating the eggs. The slogan remains, our slogan is an egg a day for a pregnant mom and an egg a day for an under 5. So it's good one side, but the other side, because I'm also looking for money, cash. I'm doing business. So yeah, I believe we have achieved.
Ladies, I hope business continues to be good for both of you. It's amazing what you're doing for your families and for your community, and I really appreciate you sharing your stories with us, and good luck with your business and meeting your vision and plans. Thank you very much. I'd now like to change to our second panel. If we can switch over the screens, please. And our second panel. Bye, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Our second panel, we're looking at the challenges and opportunities of localisation. Localisation is one of those words that we bandy about, but not all of us really know quite what it means. So we've got two people who basically, we hope, can explain to us what localisation actually means. We've got Dr. Tanveer Ahmed. Can you hear us there?
Can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. We can hear and see you. And we've got Mrs. Melina Mtonga. Can you hear and see us?
Yes, I'm able to hear you very, very well.
Lovely. Let's hope it continues like that. We've all got different questions for you around the theme of localisation, so we'd be really keen to hear your understanding and experiences of that. But could I start, Melina, if you don't mind me calling you Melina, could we start with you first, and could you briefly sort of tell us about you and your organisation, what it actually does and where you work?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Melina Mtonga. I'm the Executive Director for Find Our Feet, and this is a local organisation that is implementing a number of projects in the thematic areas of agriculture and livelihoods. We are into humanitarian, we are into education, we are into advocacy, and we are also into health and nutrition. Find Our Feet was established in 1960, of course in the UK. So this one is Find Our Feet Malawi, and then we've got our UK office.
That's really
I am a holder of a master's degree in transformative community development, but I'm also studying PhD in transformative community development at Muzuzu University.
Then you are indeed the right witness to us to talk to. So thank you for sharing your skills and experience. Dr. Ahmed, could I ask you? I know you have an awful lot of experience in this field, but could you just tell us the organisation, the Hands Foundation, that you work with and for?
Yeah, my organization is Hands Foundation, and it's one of the oldest and largest non-profit organization of the country. We established in 1979, and I'm one of the founding members. So my association with this organization is about 35 years. We started with a very small room in Karachi, Pakistan, and it's a suburb of the Karachi, Pakistan. And now we are across Pakistan. We work through multi-sectoral interventions, both all health, education, livelihood, infrastructure, water, sanitation, and when there's a disaster, we will respond to disaster. My background is public health, basically, but I learned doing NGO management in the last 30 years.
Thank you. Over to David Mundell.
Yes, so can I ask you, Dr. Tanveer Ahmed, what your understanding of localisation is? It's a phrase that's often used, but what's your understanding of it?
Yeah, localization is nowadays an agenda the international community has initiated, and the international donors and development partners are supposed to work with the local organizations. And when I say local organization, it means indigenous local organization of any country, and they should have headquarters and the governing board of the local people, comprised of the local people. Many of the organization has targeted their funding, that 25% of their funding by 2025 or 2030 will go to the local partners. So local partners are very important. Localization is very important because it will engage the local stakeholders. It's a much cost-efficient process for any development project.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yes, please come in.
Yes, I just wanted to add here to say that it's a principle of, economic and social reorganization to make sure that the locals benefit foremost. And when it comes to the government, it simply means that the government is supposed to use resources, especially on activities which are supposed to be prioritized, very important activities. And in case of the foreign aid or assistance, it's just supposed to support that particular government. And when we're looking at a local organization, what it means is the organizations are supposed to be transparent and accountable. And when it comes to the locals down there, they are supposed to be, their capacity is supposed to be built to make sure that they make their own decisions. They also use local resources rather than waiting for donor funding. In that way, we will ensure sustainability, even at local levels. So that's my understanding of organization.
Thank you very much. Over to Sam.
Yeah, just firstly to Dr. Ahmed, sort of in your experience, what difference does localization make to the effectiveness of development projects?
Yeah, it makes a lot of effectiveness. One, it is going to be very cost efficient, and we have seen in our case as well, as compared to two other international organizations. When FCDO funded us the same amount of money to three partners, two were international NGOs and one we were the local, and it was rehabilitation of schools after flood 2010. And we did rehabilitation with the same quality of the rehabilitation to 1,000 schools, and the other two partners, one did the 350 schools, and the other one did the 250 schools with the same amount of the money and the same amount of the quality consideration. So that's what the cost efficiency is the one. Two, when you do the localization practices, the local partners, as very rightly said by Melina, their capacity build. Right now, the international and development partner and the international NGO consider that the local organization cannot manage, for example, cannot do the grant management of millions of pounds or millions of dollars. But since they will not get it, so their capacity is not going to build it. So the capacity, if it is initiated with any partner, like HANS has developed this capacity, because many of the international donors has supported HANS as far as the grant management is concerned and financial funding is concerned. So our capacity is built, but still there are room for improvement. But all depend upon the international partners whether they support directly or indirectly. So the capacity building both of the financial and project management depend on the receiving the grants through the international partners. Thirdly, because the local partners, they know the best of the community engagement and the local government engagement. So they can have in very short period of time the project management and the project management and as best because they know the people around them in the community, the needy people, and the community leaders who are, because we as a local partner already engaged with them in decades, in previous 2-3 decades. So we know best possibility of the needs of the people. So any amount of the, for example, the distribution, whether it's a kind food distribution or tonnage of the food distribution is easily for us, for a local organization, because community engagement is going on there all the time. But it's same is difficult for the other international partners. And international partners, as I said, are very expensive in terms of the management.
So when aid is spent at such a local level, then I appreciate I'm asking you for an estimate here. How much is overheads as opposed to funds reaching people on the ground?
Yeah, if I talk about our organization, it's about 15 to 17% of the overhead cost only. Yeah, and because we have only one head office, and then the district offices, branches, the city level branches. So it's with very cost efficiency we can manage the operation of any project.
And what's been your experience? I can see Ms. Mtonga, I'll bring you in a moment. What's been your experience of accountability from larger NGOs and institutions in terms of reporting? Because obviously that's quite a cumbersome part of being a small NGO or grassroots organisation in receipt of aid. What's been your experience?
Yeah, again, the international partners usually don't invest on institutionalization of any local NGO. Usually they don't. They target it toward the target and achievement of the projects. So all the funds go to the project implementation. It doesn't develop usually the implementing partner, the local partner especially. So I must say that the international partners should really invest on the institutionalization of any organization and local organization, so that they can develop their capacity. And this will make the local partners strengthen their capacity in not only in financial management, HR management, and then the logistics management for any project implementation.
Thank you. I could see that Ms. Mtonga wanted to come in as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to say that localization is going to empower, the government, the civil society organizations, as well as the local communities, to generate their own resources. You agree with me that currently Malawi, even the government, civil society organization, and the locals will rely on donor funding. So the organization will assist us to generate our own resources, and then the ones we are going to receive from the international community will just support whatever we are doing.
And could I just quickly ask as well about grassroots decision making, because obviously a community isn't entirely homogenous. There's still power dynamics at play in a community. So when you're using aid locally, what What's being done, in your experience, for example, to ensure that women and youth are included in decision-making about the spend?
Okay, thank you very much. As Find Our Feet, what we do is, at a local level, we have got a number of structures. So we are talking about area development committees, we are talking about village development committees, and we make sure that such type of structures, even women and the youth are appointed in the local level decision-making processes. That is one reason. And another one is deliberate inclusion. Even in project activities, we're having certain percentages. Like, for example, we are implementing the World Food Program funded project where there's a target of about 70% of the women and above actively and meaningfully participating in project implementation activities on the ground. And just appointing the women or young women in the decision-making position is not enough. So for them to occupy those local level decision-making processes, what we do is we offer some orientation, sensitization, but at the same time, we also offer training in leadership. And sometimes we also engage them in exchange visits so that they're able to go to other groups that comprise largely of women and youth to learn from whatever activities they're implementing and how they're implementing the governance issues within their groups.
And do you feel that local needs are always taken into account, or is it sometimes the case that those who are giving the funds from above still have a particular agenda that they expect you to work towards?
Yeah, of course, when it comes to receiving funding from the international community, then in terms of the needs of the communities on the ground, we cannot say it's 100% being taken on board, but to some extent, just because funding is coming from somewhere else, it's like maybe when it comes to proposal writing, sometimes it's like dictating what is supposed to be in the proposal, what problems are we supposed to kind of sort out, not necessarily coming from the communities. Of course, as we're working in the communities, like Find Our Feet, on a daily basis, we are able to map the challenges that are faced by the communities. So in case a donor tells us to write a proposal, what we do is we make sure that the challenges which were highlighted by the communities out there, they're also taken on board. But sometimes it's like just maybe implement such type of activities and then we implement without hearing from the communities themselves. So I believe that even localization, that can also sort out such type of the challenges if they're going to make decisions on their own and they're going to tell us in terms of the challenges that we're supposed to sort out as the government or the civil society organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Laura.
Thank you. Hi, this is Laura, and I'll just build on my colleagues' questions. But it seems to me that for international donors, partners to do localisation effectively, it does require not just this change in systems and processes, but also in the culture and the mindset of these international organisations. And I'd be interested to hear your reflections on whether you are, your donors and your partners are, whether you see their culture and their mindset changing to make localisation work from your perspective. And Ms. Mtonga, perhaps I can come to you first.
Yes, of course, I attended a meeting. There was a national meeting on localization about 2 weeks ago in Ronge where we were discussing on the same. And it comprises of the civil society organization, the local organization, as well as international organizations that were present. And the international community did mention to say some of the things we cannot change because we are looking at proposal writing guidelines. For example, maybe from USAID, for example, just because that one is violating localization in Find Our Feet. So that's why I've specifically mentioned them. So you discover that the proposal application, they are robust, and you are supposed to read a lot of resources from the internet, and it takes a lot of time for you to write a very good proposal. I think when it comes to local organization, that one is problematic. And when we are trying to highlight such type of issues in the workshop, it was mentioned to say that some of these regulations or policies, they're international. So the challenge is if localization is going to take place, then I think definitely the international community is supposed to kind of maybe waive some of the regulations which are very tough if funding can be directly channeled to local organization. Otherwise, it will be problematic, and then by the end of it will be international community getting funding from international community and then working with the local NGO. So, but in terms of the government is changing some things. For example, I think if I can give a very good example, is that they came up with an NGO Act of 2000, whereby section, I think should be 31, subsection 1, and it was amended in 2022. That one was seeking to provide regulations for the operation of the international non-governmental organization in Malawi. So I think that one is one of the challenges. That is one of the progress that is made so far. And the meeting was organized by Ngora. Ngora was established by the Act of Parliament. So that one is a regulatory body. So it's registering the NGOs, but at the same time is also regulating. So the meeting was organized by Ngoma, which is the Council for Non-Governmental Organization, called NGO Regulatory Authority, and you can just imagine how the government is now serious as far as the localization agenda is concerned. So they would want to implement it by all means.
Dr. Ahmed, can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, I think though it's a very excellent agenda to devolve the powers and engage the local civil society organization and communities and make the project implementation more cost efficient, but the acceptability is very slow. It's a slow trickle down at the local level, because of, as rightly asked by you, that mindsets are not changing that fast. Although many of the international donors and community has developed the framework, strategic framework, but there is international NGOs are taking partner, and they are trying to unfortunately hijack the idea of localization. What they are doing, international NGOs, they started making to localize themselves by making their local chapter. So they get themselves registered and then get the funding and take the help of their international branches as well in proposal writing and other. So that way they are trying to really defeat the local agenda at the very grassroots level and at the national so national organization or the local organization of the country naturally cannot compete this kind of the capacity that international organization has or the lobbying that the international organization has. So this way they are trying to defeat the very right agenda of localization, and they are doing their local chapters. They are opening their local chapters and getting themselves registered. This need to be addressed. If there is this international NGO has an headquarters outside the country, should not be considered as a local NGO and should not be part of the localization fund. Similarly, the international donors who are there in the country, they should follow very strictly, because still I can see the international NGOs getting most of the funding, and they have and sometimes in the whole consortium member of 4 to 5 organizations, not a single organization, national organization exists. So these are the tangible indicator which shows whether the localization is really taking place or not. So I feel the process is started, but it is very slow.
Thank you. That's helpful to understand. And can I ask, are there examples of particularly good practice that you can point to among international donors and INGOs?
Yeah, the good practice is that one of the, I can't take the name, but one of the development partners, the international donor, has developed its framework and very tangible framework that by 2030, they are going to transfer 25% of the funds, their annual funds, to the local partners. That they have kept the target. That is very important, to keep the target and really accountability on the basis of these targets.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, Mrs. Mtonga.
Yes, I just wanted to add to say that, like USAID, they are piloting, maybe giving funding to 3 local organizations. So what they did was we had to go through the partnership incubator program for a period of more than 6 months in different areas. Talk about financial management systems, talk about the governance, business development, monitoring and evaluation, and then we are supposed to be responding to the calls for proposals so that we receive funding directly from USAID. On localization, where there's resistance, at the meeting which I attended, the government of Malawi is now very, very committed to make sure that localization takes place. So they will come up with, apart from the NGO Act of 2000, which was revised, it should be 2022. So what they have done is they will come up with operational as well as the partnership regulations between the international NGOs and local NGO. Because my brother mentioned to say that it's like they receive funding quite a lot, for example, maybe 3 billion Malawi kwacha. But when it comes to those funding now being channeled to local NGOs and then to the community, you discover that you only receive just peanuts down there. And going to the community is problematic, especially for the local NGO. There's no vehicle, and then you struggle when it comes to implementation of activities on the ground, and there's no value for money. So the government is aware of that. That's why they will be coming up with regulations to make sure that the partnership between the international NGOs and the civil society organization is cordial and going on very, very well for the benefit of a local person on the ground.
Yeah, thank you. And final question from me is, have you had an application for international funding rejected, and what were the reasons given, if so? Perhaps to you, Mrs. Mtonga, first.
Can you please come again on that? I've missed it.
Have you had any applications for international funding rejected, and what reasons were given, if so?
Yeah, for the same, the USAID, after we had gone through the partnership incubator program, we are also, they also trained us. And the proposal which we wrote, it was for cash for work, about $250,000 US dollars for Karonga. And then they took us through the proposal. We had to read the robust guidelines on the internet. We spent some time, and then we submitted that proposal. Just because of the robust applications, we were told that I think it was of poor quality, so it was not funded. And one of the reasons was just because we were using, the district council reports for the assessment for the disasters. And they did mention to say that the report, because it was asked that we should submit that report as well. So after we had submitted that assessment report, we were told that the report was wanting. It did not contain the required, I think, data which they wanted. So we failed on that one. And yet, if you look at Find Our Feet with a lot of, experienced staff on the ground, the system is okay, financial management, we are okay. So if that particular NGO is failing, then it's very, very, problematic. And I could really see that I think most of the NGOs, then they cannot make it, honestly speaking.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. Ahmed, briefly, you wanted to add?
Yeah, very recently, we made a consortium of the local partners, national organization. One for the same bit, the 4 or 5 international organizations also developed their own consortium. So it's kind of the national organization consortium and international organization consortium, and they were competing with each other. And one of the development partners, they just denied to give bid approval for the national partners. And that kind of the examples are there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. This is to Mrs. Mtonga. What recommendations would you give to the UK government as they consider how to approach their support of local organisations?
Okay, to begin with, I think the first thing is before working with the local organisation, then first of all to do the due diligence for that particular organization. We are at different levels. So due diligence is supposed to take place, and then that particular NGO is supposed to be supported in the areas, the grey areas, and then they're supposed to be given funding, but that funding is supposed to vary from one organization to the other. Others are very small. So for example, for an emerging organization, you cannot give more funding. You just give maybe a little. They implement a project up until you assist them in proposal writing, up until they're up to date. That's when the funding can start to increase. But then also looking at the possibility of training that, building the capacity of that particular organization to be generating their own resources, because currently we're not having our own resources, which is also problematic. In the future, if an organization has got their own resources, they can also develop a project and then implement on the ground. Secondly, when it comes to the support, you discover that if you are running a project, for example, and then a 3 billion project, then the project vehicle is not provided. And then we are saying that the local organization is supposed to be contributing vehicles, is supposed to be contributing cash, it should be contributing even in kind. That what it means is if a project is for 5 years, for example, it simply means that by the time the project is phasing out, that particular organization has spiraled downwards. So these projects sometimes are not there to kind of promote maybe the local organization and also assist people on the ground. They're there just to kind of, make the local organization spiral downwards. Secondly, if some international organizations, they're providing management fees to make sure that an organization has got their own funding, so that they're able maybe to construct an office or use that particular money for setting up a business or for sustainability. So that one is also required in the first place. Why you give that particular local organization maybe a specified period of time, for example, 5-7 years, to say that after this funding, you are supposed to stand on your foot and then you move forward. Another thing is what I've talked about, to say that yes, the international, the global policies are the ones which we are all using, but they're not a one-size-fits-all. For example, like Malawi country, you experience disasters. There's no need of going into, following the restricted or maybe the complicated regulations and guidelines as far as proposal writing is concerned. That one is supposed to be waived, if that is the case, at international lobbying, just to make sure that some of the conditions, maybe depending on countries, can be waived. Those countries which are developed, I think the regulations can remain. But for the developing countries, I think that one is just cumbersome and doable.
Can I just quickly ask, do you feel we're getting the balance right, though? Because there is a tension, I think, and you're absolutely right. There needs to be due diligence, there needs to be accountability, there needs to be some assurance that whatever is being spent is sustainable. But equally, all of the due diligence is time-consuming and costly. And do you feel that the balance is right in terms of money that gets lost through quite lengthy bureaucratic processes which are necessary versus examples maybe of where aid projects have failed because there's been inadequate safeguards?
Yeah, for Find Our Feet, we are okay. We have all the currently the Malawi country program comprises of about 12 projects, and we don't have much problems just because our systems are built. We are very transparent to our development partners where we're getting resources from, but at the same time we're also very accountable to the people that we serve on the ground. We have got financial management systems, and in case of the due diligence, it doesn't require maybe an international community going there and doing the due diligence. What can happen is, like, for example, you can use Find Our Feet to do due diligence on other organizations free of charge. Like Find Our Feet currently is chair for Kongoma North, and we are organizing some of the capacity building initiative without spending. So I'm building capacity of my fellow, NGOs here in the northern region without spending. So it's just a matter of identifying the NGOs which are doing very, very well on the ground and then use them to do the due diligence. They produce report and they assist fellow organizations to kind of, sort out the challenges which they are being faced.
I think Dr. Ahmed was just trying to come in as well.
Thank you. Dr. Ahmed, did you want to come in on that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's related to this and the output of what the question was. I would say the international donor community should not make local NGOs contractors. I mean, there are 2 or 3 kind of the agreements when they do. One is the grant agreement, which is the most convenient for the non-profit organization. But when you make a contract agreement, then which is most of the time, many of the time they ask the deposit guarantee with the amount of the money for the guarantee deposit. So the non-profit usually don't have one. Then there is when you do the contract signing, then there are other taxes applied. The GST, general sales tax applied, income tax applied. So the money which is supposed to go to the poorest goes into the kitty of the country. So that kind of the facilitation we are expecting for the national organization, that the non-profit organization should be considered as a non-profit. They are not the business organization. But the context made it whether it's a grant, the grant which for a non-profit, or is a contact reimbursement based agreement, which is mostly very expensive and doesn't go to the end user, the beneficiary, most of the money.
Thank you. Alice.
Yes, one quick question, thank you. I should probably just declare that I used to work on a hunger campaign for the Alliance Against Hunger before, just for the record. Really, Ms. Mtonga, for you, I'm just interested in when a disaster strikes, so for example El Nino and the effect that had in Malawi for droughts, do you see in a more of a humanitarian setting, I guess, that the localisation principles still apply? And if a lot of money is coming in, can you scale up quickly for that money to come towards you? Just the contrast between development, kind of longer term funding, and then when there's an acute need, do you see localisation working in that context too?
Yes, localization can also work. As I already alluded to say that if the government and the local NGOs are, making their own monies, definitely they can use such type of money, because when disaster strikes, especially in the southern region, we cannot run away from that. Still more, we do assist, but at the same time, we also build their resilience. So it's 2. You distribute cash, or maybe is it maize? Like this time around with the World Food Program, we're responding to 52,804 households were affected by El Nino in Baraka district. So with your own using local resources, generated resources, we can respond while we are building, resilience for the communities. Otherwise, we cannot run away from humanitarian assistance. Looking at, we are experiencing climate change-related disasters still happening, and they are to stay, especially in the southern region.
Mr. Ahmed, did you want to add anything?
Local NGOs has the capacity, and I mean a case study is a project of housing construction for the rehabilitation phase of Flood 22 in Sindh. It is one of the largest project of housing for the flood affected population. Government and the World Bank funding, they are making 2.1 million houses, and 5 NGOs were selected because they are the established credibility, and one of is HANDS, and the 4 others are, and only one organization is building 370,000 houses in 7 different districts of the same province. So that kind of the capacity we do have. But because this project was handled by the government, which handled very transparently and very effectively, so the achievement of the project is amazing. So that kind of the capacity. But in case of the disaster, the UN agency never considered as whether they are international or whether they are local, because they took most of the funding. And all the international community, they feel more convenient to go through the UN agencies in disaster response. So that's one of the questions whether UN agencies should be considered as what? National organizations or local organizations, because they are in competition with the local organization.
Thank you.
Thank you both very, very much, both for making the time to be with us, but you've also put forward really persuasive arguments on localisation. and we hope to reflect that in our forthcoming publication. We do appreciate the experience that you brought to this debate, so thank you very, very much for your time, and I hope that we're able to keep in touch going forwards. Thank you. Could I please ask Monsieur Brieuc, if I could ask you to come and take the next seat. Thank you ever so much for coming today. We really do appreciate it. There's water in front of you if you would like it. I wonder if I could start by asking you to introduce yourself and the role that you're here representing, but also could I ask you the big question, what have been or what are the biggest challenges in achieving the goal of net zero hunger? A nice easy one to start you off with.
Thank you very much. My name is Brieuc. I'm France's Special Envoy for Nutrition and Secretary General of the next Nutrition for Growth Summit, which is to be held in Paris next March, more precisely March 27 and the 28. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for the opportunity of bringing evidence to your committee. It's a true honor to be here with you today. Regarding SDG2, to be very honest, it's very unlikely that we achieve the goal that has been set in the fight against hunger. However, does that mean we have to stop trying? We do not believe so. There are, in fact, lots of arguments that would encourage us to continue our efforts. One of them is the initiative that Britain has taken, launching the Envoy initiative 12 years ago now, which allowed, I believe, the international nutrition community or development community to understand more about the efficiency of development and to develop precisely cost-effective, impactful policy, which is in fact equal to none. According to the World Bank, the return on investment of development through nutrition is a factor of 23, meaning that if you invest £100 million in development in a given country, you will get an average of £2.3 billion in return as wealth, GDP, which makes this an unprecedented policy in terms of efficiency, and that factor can get, according to economists, to 53 in given countries, for instance, in Indonesia, or 35 in South Africa, if the policy is carefully crafted and for a country which is indeed in need. So the challenges are many. We are also in a context of lack of financial resources, which is our main concern. Lack of financial resources, which are due to, for many reasons, the food crisis that was unleashed by the invasion by Russia of Ukraine, which induced food inflation and hence financial crisis, the need to pay back the debt from COVID, and many other reasons are bringing countries to cut budgets on development, which we could regret. But as a matter of fact, I would argue that if there's one policy that should not be dropped, it's indeed nutrition, which appears to be a sort of magic wand in our hands, or perhaps some sort of nitroglycerin in the engine to get closer to the 2030 SDG. So there is reason to be in despair, but there's also reason to hope.
I would push you that it's not so much the money isn't there, it's that the political will doesn't seem to be there. and political choices have been made to invest in other things rather than nutrition. When it's such a good multiplier, you know, a 23 times multiplier is a pretty good return on your investment. And also thinking about the very fundamental, if you're starving, you're not productive, you're not learning in school, you're not even getting to school. Why do you think that political will has dropped away? And do you see over the period of the last 12 years the interest internationally has dropped away, or has it never been there?
Well, I agree. I certainly agree with the fact it's quite amazing that the most efficient, cost-effective policy we know for development gets only 1% of the official development assistance, which is hard to understand.
It is.
And therefore we would certainly need to increase our efforts in that regard.
What percentage would you like it to be at?
As much as possible.
Well, yes, but realistically, were we to achieve the objective, what do you think it needs to be at? What should the aim be at any rate?
I couldn't tell you what level of investment we would need, but given the importance of this policy and its efficiency, and given the fact that it has different impacts on different nations, different governments, we would certainly need to bring it to at least 10% of the ODA at least. Now, in fact, I often say this summit, N4G, is not about nutrition. It goes beyond that. It's wider than that. Nutrition is just an example of what is behind the rationale of N4G. N4G is about how we craft development policy in the post-2030 agenda and how we bring together areas of expertise, and that is the very core philosophy of N4G, is crafting policy with different areas of expertise and breaking the silos and designing tailor-made solutions for different countries. That is why it works. This is my personal observation. I am not a nutritionist. I'm a diplomat. My job is to transform technicalities into a political process and take it to the decision-making level. But the observations we've made is that when we associate the expertise of different development policies, then we can make a difference on the climate nutrition nexus, on the gender climate nutrition nexus, and that's where it makes a difference.
Thank you. Let me bring Noah in.
And you've talked a lot about effectiveness already, which is helpful, but do you want to reflect on any of the other sort of successes that you've mentioned of the N4G summits previously, whether they're sort of financial at the high level like you discussed or more kind of on the ground?
N4G is a highly vulnerable process. In fact, it can fall victim of its own success. I was told N4G was a tradition because Olympic hosts have to organize it. But this happens only since 2012, and we are the fourth country, France, to organize it. The challenge N4G faces is that it can in fact fall victim of its own success. When you raise $42.6 billion US dollars in commitments in Tokyo, you run the risk of what we call pledgeflation, and sort of beauty contest, if you like, every 4 years, and then donors fatigue, and then the very end of the process. So our advice, since we are in a context where there's a lack of resource, of financial resource scarcity, is to take stock of what's been achieved in Tokyo and reflect on policy and reflect also on continuity, which is why to ensure continuity and to tie as firmly as possible the N4G initiative, which is a brilliant idea, we've created a troika with the Japanese and United States government. As the Japanese hosted the Olympics, we have hosted as well last summer, and the United States will host in 2028. And to keep this troika rolling, we know that Australia will host the Olympics in 2032, so that the international development community has governments to talk to on this matter, and that not only continuity but also coherence on policy is established, is ensured. So this would be a first success. Regarding the success of nutrition, in fact, it's been plateauing since the COVID pandemics. There has been some progress registered against stunting and wasting, but I'm afraid in the other areas it did not deliver as expected. So for that we would need indeed, because we know it works, we know it is efficient, we would need governments to take more commitments and involve themselves more, as you said, with more political will.
So if I can just dig into that a bit more, you discussed some of the fatigue that's arisen around this and actually that inconsistency of effectiveness, which is perhaps leading to that. I mean, is that the main thing, inconsistency of that general very high effectiveness, or how do you characterise that? Why is that fatigue coming about?
Well, the fatigue is coming about as we know there is lack of financial resource, and therefore governments want to make choices on which policies they want to prioritise. We have a number of funds that are out there that need replenishment. A financial effort is requested from governments, in particular from donor countries. So there might, if the philosophy of a given development policy is not well identified, then indeed that might induce donors' fatigue. And for that we need accountability as well, and that is at the core of the N4G process. Accountability doesn't mean a posteriori, blame game on who has spent what they had promised. It's also about helping government craft realistic commitments and effective policies, and this is also part of the accountability process. And we've teamed up with the World Bank, for instance, and IFAD to help them. Expertise is key in this matter. And
measurability as well on the ground, or
measurability, and the OECD methodology is a very interesting one. So we need agreement as well between nations on how we tag. I mean, it's very development policies which involve nutrition, in particular nutrition-sensitive policies, are very sometimes difficult. It is very difficult to evaluate what is the part of nutrition in it. Yeah. So there's quite a sheer number of experts, in particular here in the United Kingdom, who are working on this.
And if I can ask lastly, where do you see the opportunities in the future for N4G in this regard?
Well, clearly the fact that we have continuity, if we manage to secure a continuity between organisers, and also if we make sure, as Britain did in 2012 and as we are doing now, if the organiser teams up with a country which is representative of the low and middle income countries group, then we can, I think we can have high expectations on the follow-up. Working with groups, with platforms such as the Global Nutrition Report, which is widely acknowledged in the nutrition community as the experts on the accountability tracking. You know, they have a very interesting tool, the NAF tracker, the Nutrition Accountability Framework tracker, which is very useful for those who follow this business and allow us to see how well the decisions are implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you. Monsieur Pont, we're very lucky that we actually have an expert on this on our panel. I'm handing over to Alice.
I'm quite an expert, but
you're very experienced in it.
Nice to see you again. It would be helpful in you kind of segueing from what Noah said. I mean, you said there's lots of continuity, which can be a good thing, but I think unless it delivers actual outcomes, you know, perhaps it doesn't really make much difference if it continues, if we're not seeing the actual impact on the ground. So it would be quite helpful, you know, if you woke up on the 30th of March after the Nutrition for Growth Summit had concluded, what would good look like for you as a government, from the French government? What are you hoping to achieve? What would be the headlines the next day after the summit is over?
Of course, there's a financial target. We think, I'd like to quote my friend Mira Shaikh from the World Bank, who said we don't need more money for nutrition, we need more nutrition for money. So that brings in the accountability part. So I would not argue that we need to beat the figure that Tokyo has managed to achieve. This is not our concern. If we're thinking of continuity, actually we can take stock of what has been achieved in Tokyo and use this to gain impetus. We think we need political progress, and that means not an institutionalization of N4G, because we have lots of international organizations already. I think there are 17 UN agencies dealing with nutrition, but 17. But and including a platform which gathers 5 of them. So what we need is N4G to keep momentum for nutrition, mobilize the international community, countries. So the parameters, I would say, the criteria for success would be that we manage to establish consensus in the international community on the fact that nutrition needs to be adopted as a universal cause. Because this is something that affects not only low and middle income countries, this is something that also affects us. You know that malnutrition has very different forms, from undernutrition to overweight and obesity. And I'd like to add, we often talk of the burden of the 3 forms of malnutrition. I think there's a 4th burden, which is the fact that some nations are growing very old. France, for instance, in France it is said that 75% of those who decide or who need to go to the to join an elder's house do that because of malnutrition. And that is, besides the fact that it is extremely sad from a human point of view, it is also extremely costly for our finances. When people instead, if we had policies taking care specifically, I'm sure we do have, but I'm not sure we are seeing this as a problem of malnutrition, but this could have a lot of advantages also for public finance, besides, of course, the main concern, which is the well-being of our elders. So we are not France only. I believe France and the United Kingdom have more or less the same demography, and the same concerns are present in other nations. So I think that another key for success is that nutrition becomes popular, and that we understand that it goes much beyond food labeling and the cool apps that our kids enjoy to play with on the cell phones when they scan barcodes at the supermarket to see how good or how bad the food we are buying is. It's also about developing policies which address the situation of our societies everywhere.
Okay, but do you think, and you mentioned these 17 organisations, and there's lots of different initiatives. You've mentioned the World Bank and the IDA replenishment, and obviously the UK's announced some around there. Do you think there's a need to join all of these things up? I mean, the SDGs as a target and a kind of roadmap, but it doesn't feel to me that there's a global plan for how all these things come together. Do you think that's something that's lacking?
That should be addressed at the United Nations General Assembly. But what we know is that nutrition has an impact, not a direct impact on SDGs 2 and 3, but also an indirect impact on 11 out of 17 SDGs.
Yeah.
Which again makes it a sort of magic wand. Very cross-cutting, very transversal. Another challenge for governments is to have an integrated business unit, if you like, dedicated to nutrition, which is overarching and has the capacity to to give orientations, to be a compass for the interagency process, so outrank departments. So that needs to be brought at the highest level. And we see governments which are successful in dealing with nutrition in Côte d'Ivoire, in El Salvador, because this has been brought to a high level.
And maybe just to turn to the UK's role, how can the UK government support French leadership at this summit, and what are you hoping for from the UK government?
By remaining a leader. I mean, we are very grateful to the UK for this great idea, and therefore we've invited the United Kingdom to be part of a group of like-minded governments that are part of the governance of Nutrition for Growth 2025. And we've designed this group as a sort of a bee swarm, if you like, that can communicate and engage with other governments, financial institutions. So what we need, our friends in that group, including the United Kingdom, is to act in coordination with us, with the Troika, to bring initiatives, to push, to make that collective push towards success. Again, the World Bank, in regional development banks, where the United Kingdom might have board members, of making démarches with other countries, teaming up. That's what we are actually doing with our colleagues of the FCDO Nutrition Office, working hand in hand and organizing joint side events in Rome or elsewhere. But starting January, I think we'll need to press even more and try to achieve success.
Okay. But you'd like them to turn up with a monetary contribution too?
Well, we expect every government to turn up with a monetary contribution. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a fund. It can be a financial commitment. But certainly we would encourage parliaments to support the government's effort in favor of nutrition. We are going to do our homework. It's up to probably to my authorities to announce the level of commitment that France wants to bring in this edition. But clearly, as the host nation, we will take our responsibilities, and we expect everybody to join this effort. You see, there's been a recent announcement by the Asian Development Bank to bring $3 billion for the 2025-2030 period. So I think that was nil in 2021 from the Asian Development Bank. So we hope that everybody is going to scale up the effort.
And just my final question, just on, obviously ODA is an important source of funding, but are you hoping to discuss other forms of funding? You touched on the development banks. Obviously France had the big finance summit last year hosted by President Macron that was looking at the financial institutions as a whole. Do you see this linking into that in any way in terms of where the money will come from, debt relief, etc.?
Absolutely. Yeah. There will be a number of side events, and one of them will bring together the multilateral and national development banks. We happen to host a platform called FIX, Finance in Common, which is hosted by the French Development Agency, and that has together 330 development banks. We've met in Washington in October. We'll meet again in Cape Town in late February for the World Summit there. And so the idea is to really have them include nutrition in their portfolio, because bottom line, when you speak of development banks, we're speaking of banks, and they want a good return on investment, and if possible, on an effective policy and efficient decision. So I think there's these stones have been left unturned in Tokyo, and there's perhaps, I hope, a way forward with them.
Thank you. We touched on it in the previous question. You mentioned the 17 UN organisations, but I mean, we've just recently had the announcement of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty by President Lula at the G20. And whilst in principle, these initiatives seem worthy of support, are they complementary to what you're doing, or are they competing with what you're doing? And is there a way to coordinate effort and indeed goodwill to have a more productive outcome?
Thank you for this question, which is indeed key. The fact that we are seeing a number of initiatives on the fight against hunger flourishing everywhere indicates that there is concern and in the international community, but also consensus on the fact that this matter is a real problem. President Macron and President Lula, during President Macron's state visit to Brazil, agreed on the fact that France and Brazil would work together hand in hand in support of N4G and in support of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, which we obviously joined, and Brazil is part of the N4G governance. So yes, there is coordination, and the last thing we would want is competition, because that would mean dispersing the resources that we are struggling for. So there is coordination, and our understanding is that Global Alliance commitments taken in the framework of the Global Alliance can be also registered as N4G commitments, a bit of sort of an airline co-chair, if you like. So this is something that we have an agreement with Brazil, and then it's very encouraging. We need certainly coordination, better coordination, to avoid competition. And perhaps the G20 is an excellent forum to coordinate that, to organize that.
And what do you think in terms of just, which was again referenced earlier, about what would be or could be a structure to the roadmap to SDG2? I mean, what we've got, the existing structures are obviously not delivering it. Is there a structure, or does it just come back down to political will or to resources, or is there not a silver bullet out there?
This is something that is being reflected upon by the working groups of N4G. You know, we very often see the summits, but we don't see the mountain below. And right now we're climbing up the mountain with all the participants in the N4G governance, who are not only brainstorming about what should be done, but also engaging with potential donors and pledges. Now, we've partnered with the UN agencies so that they work together, and I believe that is quite an achievement. And now they are working together, coordinating this working group, and the idea is that they have sort of coordinated policies to become these roadmaps towards 2030. Now, if we want something more precise, I think that would go against the spirit of nutrition, development through nutrition, because precisely the idea is to be innovative and to allow thinking out of the box, breaking silos, and I would recommend to let it proceed as it is, without creating yet another controlling body inside the United Nations, or that would be certainly counterproductive at this stage, I believe. We can perhaps think of one day a reorganization, a rationalization of the United Nations nutrition mechanisms. That could be for the next stage after 2030. Thank you.
So could I push you a little bit on that, because David's question is what's bothering me. And if I can bring you back, you started saying you're not a nutritionalist, you're a diplomat. And it seems the political malaise and therefore lack of funds that's going to this very critical issue, which I would argue underpins almost everything we're trying to achieve to alleviate poverty. The systems that we've got are very heavy, very cumbersome, very expensive, and don't appear, well, they're not working. So I hear what you're saying, you know, wait until 2030 when the SDGs come to an end. But if you were tasked now with coming up with a solution, what would it actually look like? Because it seems that our diplomats are very happy to fly around the world and talk about pledges and then make a pledge and then don't actually deliver on it, and then how much of it actually gets on the ground. It's not working. So if I gave you a blank piece of paper now, how would you as a diplomat, because we know what the problem is, how would you as a diplomat create something that wasn't so cumbersome and that actually made a difference? Or is it just impossible?
It's not impossible, but I think we are making good progress on accountability. According to the Global Nutrition Report, my understanding is that out of $42.6 billion that were pledged in Tokyo, about 39 have been effectively engaged or will be, but there's little doubt that they are going to be. So I wouldn't say that. I think we have to take enormous care about accountability, which is why we have the smart pledging. You know, the fact that pledges need to comply with a certain number of 5 principles, and there needs to be a follow-up mechanism. We're working with the Global Nutrition Report on that, and I think they are quite effective. It is important that pledges are made responsible pledges.
But with respect, when I asked you,
yes.
So you were saying that 1% of the ODA spend is going on nutrition,
yes.
And I asked you how much was needed. I think you gave an estimated guess rather than
yes.
knowing, which puts you in a very weak negotiating position. And of the pledges that we're getting in, and it's not you personally, and I'm incredibly grateful for what you're doing, so please don't take it that way. Of the pledges that we're getting in, we're seeing more and more people facing hunger, facing starvation, facing famine. So whilst the model that we've got and the pledges and the percentages might have been working 10 years ago, is it that the challenges have now become much more acute, and so therefore the model that we're working to isn't fit for purpose anymore?
Yes, absolutely. I think we totally agree on the fact that we need tailor-made policies that are crafted for each country, each problematic, and then that in that context it's extremely complex to define goals, financial goals. So, which is why I'm lukewarm about defining a certain amount or percentage of volume of assistance. When you have a return on investment which is average 23, but you know you can get to 53, the range is so wide that I don't think it would mean much to define precise targets. When I say 10%, because I believe that it should be tenfold.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, indeed, it's a wild guess. The idea is that we need to have a serious, important race in terms of funding of development policy. Again, this is very wide. It touches upon gender, education, healthcare, climate change.
And is that part of the problem that we see it as a silo?
Yes, it's part of the problem, which is why N4G will try to unlock, break these silos, and we will hold policy discussions on the nexus, climate, gender, nutrition, for instance.
Can I bring Alice back in, please?
So.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it for a long time, and it strikes me that, when we had the food crisis, like 2009, the UN kind of came in and set up the high-level group on tackling food crises with David Nabarro, and we had gaps come out of that. Do you think the UN could be playing more of a role? And I just wanted to pick up on business as well, because we haven't spoke about them, and obviously there are big companies making massive profits out of things like grain. There have been proposals of a windfall tax. I'm also wondering if you are looking at some big ideas around, private sector and their role in this as part of the summit. So kind of I guess, two questions around, does it need a crisis to provoke some kind of change in the international system, and where do you see the private sector fitting in nutrition for growth?
I would say it is rather unfortunate, but indeed the international system tends to change when crisis appears.
And you could argue we've had that with Ukraine and what's happened to food prices.
Indeed, and we are working hard for consensus on the conclusions we must draw from that aggression against Ukraine. But I'm not sure there's total consensus in the international community on the matter, which we can only regret. Now, regarding participation of the private sector, it's key. It's key. This is a sector which creates wealth, which is innovative, but it's also part of the problem. And I would argue that if it's part of the problem, it needs to be part of the solution as well. On the sidelines of the summit, we will host a forum will be hosted in Paris with companies, regardless of their compliance with N4G principles, which are very strict, because we need to hear from them, but they also need to hear from us. What we call nutrition is everyone's business, and will bring governments, civil society organizations, and companies. Those who deserve to be applauded because they are an example for everyone will be applauded. Those who deserve credit for trying and making efforts, but insufficient, that close we will receive credits and will be encouraged to run this extra kilometer. And those who haven't done enough will be told, look, it pays off to be on the good side of history. If we don't engage with companies, then they will think that the Wild West is there and they can do whatever they want to make profits, and this is certainly what we do not want to happen.
One final question, and the bell is for votes, so members need to go, I'm afraid. Conflict, desertification, do these things come into your summit, or should they come into your summit?
I was at the COP16 in Riyadh last week. We obviously have in mind the many conflicts that are becoming an extraordinary, unprecedented problem. The brutalization of international relations is there, and crisis resilience for us, but also human-induced crisis and natural causes are also a matter of concern, and we need to reflect how we can help, in particular institutions like the World Food Programme, to react more efficiently to this multiple crises we are facing.
Thank you. As Alice said, I think we could talk about this all day, but unfortunately the votes have cut us off. Thank you so much for making the time. Committee members, thank you. I appreciate it.